Every time I sing opera, someone will inevitably ask something like, I mean, that's cool and all, but why don't you just sing like a normal person? And you know what? I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Because like of all the ways that people could decide to sing, this is where opera has landed. Why not something like this? Or like this. In today's video, we're going to break all of that down. We're going to talk about where the opera technique comes from. We're going to talk about whether it has any relevance in today's modern world. We'll talk about whether opera singers can actually take away the technique, and then we'll talk about why they don't. Okay. We can't understand modern day opera sound until we understand where it came from, because girl, she owes. Yes, children's singing has existed far longer than your modern day record players and tape machines. Let's time travel. England, 1525. The Renaissance. Henry VIII is married to his first wife. We are blissfully unaware of how interesting that's about to get. Some chap called Martin Luther did something in Germany that's making church rather strange these days. Another round of sweating sickness is mowing down the population, but oh, how lovely it is to forget these daily woes for a moment through the power of music. In the courts, they're singing in something that's approaching structured harmony. That's wild. And for non-courtiers, minstrels wander the streets singing songs of love and loss and the baby Jesus. But alas, the minstrel is but one man with one voice and no microphone, and the poor cow maid milking her cow at the edge of the square, very busy not owning property, can't hear a damn thing. London, 1725. The Baroque period. The Georgian Empire has begun, England and Scotland have unified, and the Kingdom of Great Britain is on the rise. London has become a Central European hub with as yet unknown historical figures walking its very streets. Good day to you, Mr. Franklin. Hobbies abound, from reading books to cricket to boxing. But look there. A newfangled genre from Italy has recently arrived on English soil, and with it, singers who have learned to project their voices across entire orchestras throughout entire theaters. Granted, the way these singers do that does sound a bit strange, but from Handel in the courts to John Gay in the streets, opera quickly becomes a beloved pastime. It's now 1925. In the last 40 years, 2/3 of English homes have now been wired for electricity. The first votes for women have been granted, with votes for all women just around the corner. And a brand new invention is starting to be used by some singers, the first demonstration coming from renowned opera singer Nellie Melba, the amplifying microphone. Now, singers can be heard around an entire theatre without using any sort of amplification at all, just by singing into this device. What will this mean for operatic technique, for singing in general, or indeed, for music as a whole? And here we are today, 100 years later. Yes, this is your friendly reminder that there was a world where microphones did not exist and people alive today were born in it. It ain't that old. I mean, like, it's obviously a little bit old, but like, you would think it would be a lot older than that, right? At least I did. But microphones, and can we just assume here that when I'm saying microphones in this video, I'm talking about amplifying microphones? I know there are all different kinds, but I specifically mean the ones that like make your voice do the loud thing, then people can hear it. That's what I'm talking about. Microphones changed everything. For the first time in human history, singers did not, or speakers, anybody who was using their voice, did not have to use their body to project their sound so that everybody would be able to hear it. They could just use this amplifying microphone. That completely liberated vocal style. You could just kind of whisper or mumble or whatever you wanted to, vibe-wise, into the microphone, and everyone would be able to hear you. And because of that, we now have 100 years of genres blooming in music that didn't have the opportunity to even be considered before that because they wouldn't have been able to be heard. My neighbors are doing construction. I guess we'll wait.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So, okay, to summarize, opera is an old technique that was used historically to allow singers to carry their voices over orchestras in a time before electricity existed. It's not just the opera repertoire that makes opera sound like opera, it's the actual sound of opera. It's that historical technique that gives it that unique, abnormal, weird sort of sound that you hear and that you think of when you think of opera singing. And if we were to take that away and we were to make it sound normal, then sure, we might be modernizing the skill, but we would also be removing an entire layer of historical practice. The problem with all of this reasoning, of course, is that this is all from the singer's perspective. We want to keep all the historical practice. We are the ones who care about it sounding the way that it does. But there are plenty of audience members who like the music, but they want it to sort of move on with the times, to adapt to modern technology. And I think that we do have a responsibility to care at least a little bit about that, right? I mean, after all, without an audience, who are we singing for? But before we actually do start going to change the way that opera sounds and updating it for modern technology, I have a question for the people who are curious about that. Why? See, you can't just ask a question without understanding what the problem is that you're trying to solve. Right? Sorry, that's probably super loud. Because it might seem like the right solution to just ask opera singers to do something normal, whatever that means for you, but what is that going to do for you? What problem is that solving? And to answer that, I think we need to ask a bigger question, which is, why do we listen to music? Hello, Editing Kate. I have like 30 seconds of footage that just like straight up didn't record, so please enjoy this artistic rendering of what otherwise should have been camera footage. Thank you. Oh boy, who's got two thumbs and a can of worms she's gonna open? At least I would if I had two thumbs, but I'm holding this up. I brought visual aids. Broadly speaking, sources in the description, there are two big reasons that we listen to music: emotional response and academic interest. Emotion is one of the big ways that we listen to music. It lets us do all kinds of stuff. Cry, laugh, process a breakup, scream into the void, be really bored, whatever sort of connecting with people, whatever we need to do to be able to feel like we need to express something that words alone just sometimes can't get out. So let's say every emotion lives on a scale of intensity. We're going to take sadness as an example here, where 1 is I'm fine and 100 is Cedric's dad. Most of us are going to feel sadness in our lives with an intensity of somewhere between like 20 and 80. Oh God, we're going to eyeball it. 20 is like a bit down, 40 melancholic, 60 is pretty upset, and then 80 is like full heartbreak. Because even when we are sad, we're not like that sad on a daily basis. You'd combust. So when we turn to music for emotional release in our like normal daily lives, we're gonna be looking for something that's kind of like hitting the emotional range here. We're gonna call this the regular joy of seeing a puppy, or like the sadness of social media comparison, or the general frustration at the lady in the grocery store who's really old and is moving extremely slowly down the aisle, but somehow is taking up enough space that you can't get past her. I don't understand. Move. Who gets mad at the elderly that way? Not me. Not me. This is where we get the dreaded relatable word, because all the music that sits in the zone is basically the quotidian soundtrack to just being a person. Oh my God, you are welcome for that SAT word. Opera, though? Opera doesn't do quotidian emotions. We aren't sad. We are despairing. We are bereft. We are anguished. Damn it, and the whole damn theater's gonna hear about it. Opera lives here, in the big feeling zone. And it's not just the singing, by the way. Remember that opera comes from a time before cameras, before people were even carrying opera glasses around on the reg. So everything was huge. Everything from the singing, to the music, to the acting, to the facial expressions, to the drama. It all had to be able to hit the back row of that theater. And yeah, that means that opera can be harder to connect to, because we don't walk around experiencing emotional anguish all day, every day. God, at least I hope not. But let's come back to that relatable word, because I posit that opera is actually just as relatable as this, because this big feeling zone, this is an intensely human emotion. Really, I'm gonna get the drama out of my voice now. Good luck. This is part of what it means to feel human. We just don't experience it quite as regularly. So there's not that often of a reason, I was gonna say much of a reason. We don't really need it as often as we need the stuff in here. But when we do need it, we need it. Have you ever wondered why opera is so popular at weddings and funerals? Obviously, this is all a generalization. There is some like normal music that will rip your heart out, and there is some opera that's just about, I don't know, like soup. But like generally speaking, opera tends to live in the big feeling zone. Normal music tends to live in the zone of emotional common intensity. I messed that up. Oh no. But like we said, emotions aren't the only reason that we consume music. We also have academia. Of course, this can go a lot of different ways, but it's the analytical side of enjoying music. It ranges from harmonic analysis to historical context to transcribing counterpoint while you're on the bus, like some kind of freak. freakishly lovable person. Academia is the difference between, oh my God, she's thinking about being in a Jeep and I am in my Jeep right now. Anyone else listen to music that way? Is it just me? And the contrapuntal texture is supple yet robust. Its harmonic weight deftly lifted by a fleeting secondary dominant that infuses the phrase with a delicate luminosity. I like slurped my glasses. What was that about? I tease. I love you guys. Nothing makes me feel more humble than listening to my musical friends have a conversation like this. It just reminds me of how much more there is that's left still to learn in the world. How beautiful. And also how incredibly not smart I am in comparison to them. But we're not going to dwell on that. Also, I'm wearing contacts. I'm going to barf. I'm done with this bit. This is what people mean when they say that they have appreciation for something, for a piece of music. It's the idea that even if you have no actual emotional connection to the music, you can still understand that this piece of art has value in and of itself, even if it doesn't appeal to your particular taste. I can appreciate it. And like rock, like jazz, like a lot of songs from any genre, opera usually sits at the intersection of these two reasons for listening to music. Like, yes, you can listen purely for the vibes, but if you don't, sorry, the vibes are here. But if you don't engage with the academic side of opera, you're easily missing like half the experience. So as a listener to, and presumably if you've made it this far in the video, a lover of music, you likely value both of these things, right? Maybe the balance is shifted more towards one side than the other. Like I would say that I'm probably 70-30 emotion academia, but still you have an appreciation for both. So why don't opera singers just sing normally? It's not just that it's a historical reproduction, it's the sheer size of the thing, from the emotional intensity to the actual size of the music and the singing to the academic interest behind it. But what if we didn't care? What if we didn't care? Go with me here. What if we didn't care? What if opera singers had seen the microphone get invented and then they thought to themselves, oh my God, I'm so excited. What in the world will this mean for all of this amazing music? We can do so much with it now. And then what if they had taken the next 100 years to do that? To make opera sound normal? What would that sound like? Okay, obviously normal is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. There's not like one definition for what that word means. I'm not even gonna try and define it. What I'm talking about here is removing operatic technique from the equation. So I will probably expand this into a larger series at some point, but I'll put a list right here of all the factors that go into operatic technique, and then we'll start removing them one by one as we listen to an operatic aria and then kind of see where we land. Actually, you know what? Can we just like make this full screen? Thank you. So we'll start here at full opera sound. Give ourselves a control, right? Then we're going to remove the resonance. That's the loudness. Not to say that normal singing isn't loud. It is. It's just a different kind, okay? Then we're going to change the tone to be lighter. Opera tends to be quite dark, quite heavy. We're going to take that out. Then we're going to add some vocal imperfection, a little rasp, a little growl. I will try my best. I'm not the best at this. Then we're going to turn the vibrato way down. That's the big one, right? Then we're going to make it a little less rigid, some movement between the notes, maybe a couple ornaments, who knows? I'll pronounce some things differently, much less overpronounced. And then finally, we're gonna dial that drama back to like, a more normal place. God, wouldn't it suck if I like made this whole video and then it turned out I can't do this? Oh my God. I guess we'll see. Oh boy, doing like little rasps and growls and stuff. Not my strong suit. That shit got trained out of me a long time ago. If anyone knows, side note, how to teach someone to put that stuff back into their voice after opera has trained it out of you, I'm interested. Sign me up. Sign me up. Now you might like this better. You might not. To me, I'm kind of torn. I can see some cool stuff in it, but it's kind of like seeing your teacher wearing jeans. Like, technically fine, sure, I guess they're real people, but it's also a little bit spiritually disturbing. You know, it is cool that the music itself is still there. Like, technically, the melody is still relatively intact, minus a couple embellishments. Like, the composer is still present. You can still academically look at this and pick it apart. It's the same song. I can still emotionally connect to it. It's just different. It's a different kind of emotional connection. But I feel like it also kind of hits different, you know? Like, hello. And be careful, the candle's burning here, okay? I don't want you to hurt yourself. Hutso. Hello. Are you going to sing with me? Are you going to play some beautiful piano? You sure are. Because like there's a reason that we choose to sing things the way that we do. And this can go both ways. Let's flip it. Let's take some normal singing and then we'll turn that into operatic technique. Oh boy, we'll do a little bit of a shout out to spooky season here. I'm going to do Olivia Rodrigo's Vampire. I know it's old, so am I, but also it does a really good job like going up high as does opera. So I think you'll see. And then the opposite of everything before, we're going to start with everything turned off and then turn stuff on one by one. In theory. God, I hope I can do it. I've made some real big mistakes, but you make the worst one look fine. I should have known it was strange. You only come out at night. I used to think I was smart, but you made me look so naive. The way you sold me for parts, you sunk your teeth into me. Sucker, fame fucker, bleeding me dry like a goddamn vampire. Oh my God, didn't like that. Didn't like that. Anyone else feel kind of violated? But it proves my point, right? Like, there's a reason that we sing things the way that we do. This song is not meant to be sung this way. It completely changes the way that you engage with it. And for people who love opera, and especially who love the style of opera singing, it kind of feels the same way when we sing opera normally. Because ultimately, we sing the way we do to serve the emotional and the academic intention of the music. If we were to sing opera like normal, maybe a few things would happen. Maybe we would gain some accessibility, but then we would also lose some of the history. It might feel a little more relatable to those everyday emotions, but then we lose one of the genres that explores those extreme emotions. And I mean, yeah, maybe it might attract a bigger audience, but then we would lose this skill, this centuries old skill that you're listening to right now in the background. That would just become something that you would read about, rather than be able to actually hear with your own ears today. But I think it's good to ask questions like these because it's stuff that we as classical musicians should be grappling with, these honest questions from audience members. How much of classical music is the music itself, and how much of it is the way that it's performed? In other words, if people only like classical music when it isn't performed classically, do they still like classical music? You can sound off. I'm sure that will be a war zone down there in the comments, but my 2 cents, I don't think that there's a right answer to that question. So, why don't opera singers sing opera like a normal person? I think because it's not normal. Now, that's not a bug, that's a feature. That might mean that the opera style of singing is not to your taste. And that's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that because it caters to someone out there likes it. And thank God, because we all have our needs that need to be met. God, that sounds really weird. There's more than enough music in the world that is there to accommodate all of the whys for why we listen to music. That's better. That's better. But I love opera. I think it's amazing. And if you're new here and you're also interested in opera, welcome. Hello. That's what this entire channel is about. Lucky for you, I've got a whole playlist on how to get started with classical music. I will drop that into the description below. You can also find me on Substack as The Mood Listener, where I recommend a new track every week based on literally nothing but vibes. Hello, I'm an emotional listener. And I also have a podcast, Never Heard I Ever, where I listen to non-classical music with a co-host who is literally a radio DJ. And that's enough plugs. You like it? Do you feel, where do you feel? You feel a little bit of intensity here. I see it. God, clunk.